Nancy. Can't hear you. Can you open your mic?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I will make you a co-host.
Okay, thank
or a host, and then I will leave and go to the other room, okay?
Okay. I have a colleague, once he come in, I have a colleague who would be also co-presenting with me. So
so you are the host now, and you can make him a co-host if you'd like to. You can make, okay?
So how can I make somebody? I forgot.
You just push on the participants on the bottom of the screen.
Yes.
Okay, and then you see all the participants, and you can just press on the name of the participant and specific participant and make him a co-host. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So
thank
do
you.
You want to check if it's okay and you can do it?
Yes, I think I just forgot the first step, which is
it's open.
So now I can.
Okay, so I'm leaving. So I'm leaving you here, and have a good time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye
bye.
Bye. Okay, so good afternoon. I don't know. Well, it's a nice group, so we have about a dozen here, and yes, learning. I better make you the co-host. Let me see. Right. Yes. Okay. So actually, I would like to understand a little bit more about what your interests are. What you Lermy, would you like to do the very quick poll or not? Lermy, you're muted.
So shall we do the polling or just ask?
I think you're polling first. Yeah, maybe that would be easier.
Okay.
So yes, because I want to understand a little bit, say whether what your interests are and how many of you have actually watched the video. Because if you have watched the video, then we won't sort of burden you with that, and if not, then we can go through some of that. Yeah. Because I mean, not everyone is having a video. Otherwise, we can just have show of hands. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe everyone can look at the chat box, and I just send out a link for the Mentimeter to want to get some response from you. And then you can simply type in the www.menti.com and then type in the code. And then we can do a quick polling to understand your background or your interest for this workshop.
Yeah, actually, if we were able to do some preparation in Zoom before, it would be easier to have the poll inside. But anyway, so we typed www.menti.com and then we put in the code.
So maybe I can share my screen to show the result. Okay, we can see the polling result from the screen now.
So let me see. Good. Well, that's a good distribution. We have 3 instructional designers, 2 teachers, staff developers, administrator, and then also researcher. Very good. So right. So
still didn't open the second question.
What's the second question? Okay. Okay, the one who says both is me. Well, I think we probably have everyone sort of enter once. I mean, if you want to respond, I think everyone who, okay. In that case, shall we start by actually going over some of the things? So, I mean, we have 8 who haven't watched any. So, okay, in that case, maybe we can have maybe we can start with the conceptual slide first, and then we can then do some demo.
Okay, sure. So will you share your screen to introduce some of the...
Okay, should I share my screen? Okay, so which one should I use? Okay. Oh. No,
In this video, we will provide.
No, sorry. I should just use the slide. I sort of got the. Okay. Maybe. So everyone see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay, so I'll just very quickly sort of give an introduction to the Learning Design Studio, basically the underpinning ideas, and then we can also then Lermin can take you through the actual Learning Design Studio. So as I said, we have had sort of 3 versions. This is the second version because this is the one that we have done a lot more work. And so this one you can just self-register. So if you just type the link and then you just go in and then you will be able to sign up. There's no approval needed. Yeah. The only approval needed would be, say, after you have contributed after you have completed your design, you want to share your design with other people, then you can say, I want to submit to the public, and then we will review. And then if we think that is appropriate, then we would share with others. And then you would also be acknowledged that you are the author. So basically, as I said before, the whole design idea is that we won't just look at a small, say, lesson or something which is a smaller unit, but we want to have looking at a kind of more like a coherent unit or module, because in this case then because we are encouraging teachers to think more about the overall, what do you want the students to learn. So to us, learning design should start with defining the learning outcomes. And so this is another view of the at the top level, the course level design. Like many of the other tools, we would ask the teachers to put in the basic information about the course that they are trying to design. And then for the learning outcomes, we actually separate into 3 categories, and we wanted the learning designer to think about, okay, so what's the disciplinary knowledge that we want the students to learn? What are the skills? And also we want them to think about the generic skills. So it's very much what we call the 21st century skills, like problem solving, collaboration, and so on. So, and we call, and so this is the interface at the course level. And then once we go into after we define what the course is, we want then, say, for example, if we're teaching a course on, say, algebra, then you have certain topics and you would have certain coherent sort of curriculum, what we call curriculum component. And each component would then target certain outcomes. And then for each component, it would have a sequence of tasks that you would go through. So, and why do we say that it is a pedagogically neutral sort of design tool? Is because we don't push, we don't say, you know, which pedagogy you want to be using, or so in a way it allows you to do everything you want, but at the same time you are left to yourself to make decisions. And moreover, in this case, we don't really have a very explicit way to guide the teacher on how to consider the pedagogy. So we guide them to think about a sequence. So we have a procedural guidance, but actually in deciding on which curriculum components, then we should be thinking about two things. One is, what's the pedagogical approach? And the second is, what's the practice scenario that you want the learner to do? So what would we mean by pedagogical approach? Say, for example, a lot of professional degrees would, I mean, a very popular approach would be problem-based learning. And if we look at problem-based learning, there is certain sequence of things that the course would be like. Say, it could be, it has to be around problems, and each problem you start with formulating the problem and so on. So in this case, we haven't made this explicit. And also say, if it is problem-based learning, whether it's in engineering or in, say, medicine or in, say, teacher education, then the sequence and the scenario would be quite different. And so this is the, so in this case, we allow you to do everything, but also it doesn't have a very explicit support. And you can see that just like the learning designer, we have also differentiated tasks into, in a way, there are 12 task types, but the 12 task types, we categorize them into 4 categories, because we think that, and you can see that they are different shades of the same color. So one group is directed learning. So it's more like the instruction and then the practice, testing and so on. Another would be what we call exploratory learning. What are exploratory learning? There's 3 types of exploratory learning. Explorations through, explorations of information. So you do information search, evaluation, and so on. So there's exploring information. Another is exploration through conversations, discussions. It could be forums or face-to-face and so on. And then the third one would be what we call tangible or immersive explorations. So it goes from, say, doing experiments, or say, playing with simulations or even games, and also say AR, VR type of explorations. These would belong to the exploratory learning. And then productive learning is when you say, a lot of times we talk about maker, you know, pedagogy. So you learn through making something. So there are 3 types of making. One is what we call conceptual artifact. So if you make, if you write something, or say you write an essay, or you do a presentation, or you make a PowerPoint, or you do a poster, that would be that kind. And then you can also have a performance type of production, and it can also be presentations. And then the fourth type is very important, reflection. So it can be also through revision is also one form of reflection. And then also peer evaluation, self-evaluation is also one form of reflective learning. And so we can also go into the task level design, looking at social organization, what kind of feedback, what kind of motivators, resources, and tools. And we do have a designer dashboard, which would show the designer, based on the time allocation, how much time is given to, say, for example, in this case, the blue is the largest sector. So a lot of directed learning, but there is also about a quarter of the time is on exploratory learning. About less than a quarter would be on productive learning, and still about 10% on reflective learning through self or peer evaluation. And we also have the social organization, because we feel that any type of learning activities could be done, have different kind of organization, like a group or individual, or say peer review or whole class learning. So so maybe I will stop here and ask, is there any question that you want to clarify in regard to the Learning Design Studio higher education, or any comments?
Hi.
Yes.
You said that you don't direct.
Yeah.
You said that you don't direct teachers to a certain pedagogy, and is it possible to choose from a variety of pedagogies, or you just build it yourself? And
okay, you're asking, say, in this particular case, can we choose a particular pedagogy?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay.
So the next so actually this is what we are working on now. So the new version, we want people to be able to select you know, some pedagogy, and then we can then scaffold them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
I think maybe we can experience it, and then we'll have more comments.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good. Yeah, so maybe I'll just talk a little bit more about the question that Shaker just asked. So when we think about providing pedagogical support, what we would like, so we have a kind of like a framework for it. So what we think, what we would be doing is that we would ask people to think about the kind of learning outcomes. And depending on the learning outcome, we might be then able to propose you know, certain pedagogical approaches that would be relevant. And we also would like to, because we want to promote pedagogies that are more collaborative and inquiry oriented. So based on that, we might also provide a kind of like a suggestion on what kind of practice. So we would be giving, okay. So once we define, so we start with the learning outcome and then the pedagogical approach. And then, so to give an example, we would say, for example, if you're in the STEM area and you want to do a kind of maker, a kind of pedagogy. So, okay, self-directed learning, you want the students to be self-directed, but there are many ways to do self-directed learning. Say, if in science, if you're doing a scientific investigation, then you want the students to take on a kind of like an image that you are, say you're working with your group as a scientific team. And so you would start with identifying the problem and so on and so forth. And you come up with a kind of like a research report for your scientific investigation. But then if you are looking at making something as a solution, then of course you still start with identifying the problem. But then the solution is towards making something. So we would be using engineering design as the kind of disciplinary practice to map onto the pedagogical approach. And after that, we can then try to develop a kind of like a learning focus. Looking at the sequence, and then we have the sequence. And for each component, we then decide on the sequence of tasks. Say, for example, if in this case, one part of the teacher's learning, the learning outcome that the teacher wants the students to overcome is, so maybe it's a science topic, and the teacher knows that I'm teaching gravity today. But then I know that many of my students would think that heavier things would fall faster. So there is a lot of misconceptions that the students would have in their head. And the teacher thinks that he or she needs to dispel these misconceptions first. Then she wants to design a kind of like a component which would do that task. And so the system might suggest, or the teacher may himself or herself decide to do something what they call a kind of like a strategy, predict, observe, explain. So with that, then you can see that there are 3 green boxes. 2 of them are light green, which are exploration through conversations. And then this one would be a tangible exploration. So you actually do an experiment. So you predict, and then you observe, and then you explain. You observe, and then you explain and reflect on what it is. So we will be taking you through an example of how to use the new system, how we actually scaffold the self-directed learning. So say in STEM, most likely it would be either engineering design or scientific investigation. And so these are simplified sequence in these 2 approaches. And then for us, the self-directed learning is a 5-stage process too: goal setting, self-planning, self-monitoring, self-evaluation, and revision. So with these, we can then come up with a sequence of 5 curriculum components. So engineering design, so identify design problem by goal setting, ideate and design innovative solutions by self-planning, construct the prototype by self-monitoring, test performance of the product by self-evaluation, and then finally optimize the product by revision. So that's the kind of scaffolded process that we are planning to work on. So each of these. So we will give you a guided tour on the smart backpack. So Lerming, can I pass it on to you?
Yeah, so maybe I can. So if you want me to try out the HE version or the LDS
okay, so
version.
Is there any preference, say, colleagues here? Yes, we should be giving you a guided tour. How would you like us to do it? You want us to show you the generic one, the higher education one, without any pedagogical support, or do you want the newer one, which is not fully tested yet, but it has that kind of idea? Which one would you prefer?
The newer one?
Yeah, the new one.
The new one, okay. So take us through the new one then, Lerming.
Okay, sure. So this is not the new one.
You have the next tab.
Yes.
Yeah, the next
Okay.
tab.
So as Nancy just mentioned, this new one have pedagogical guidance. It have a pedagogical preference for teachers to choose using the self-directed learning. This is also catered to the STEM, K-12 STEM context. So this platform provides several what we call scaffoldings for the teachers. So I will show you how does the scaffolding looks like. So we first login. So once you have signed, you can see what you have worked, what your learning design have worked here. So I have produced an example of the learning design. You can see the public design, so you can share your design as public here. No, maybe I should start with a new one so that you can see how the scaffolding works. So at the new pedagogy, as Nancy has mentioned, that because for the STEM education, there are two forms of what we call the disciplinary practice. One is we want to ask the student to produce something that is what we call the engineering design, or if you want the student to do an investigation on a scientific problem, so they can find a problem and then design an experiment and conduct the experiment and have some results. So the other form is the scientific investigation. So the teacher may think about this first. So if you choose the engineering design, and then the platform will ask you to think about the detail of the lesson. So here, if you want a student to have a deeper understanding, so we cannot ask the student to achieve the learning outcome in a single lesson. So basically, we will have several lessons to combine as a curriculum unit. So this is what we call the unit title. We will have a smart backpack, which we will ask the students to design a smart backpack using sensors to address some kinds of the daily problems, such as the security, such as the to measure the weight of the backpack. So this may be used for the grade 5 students, and we will the school will arrange four lessons for this unit. And you can also see that there are some hints here. These hints are some pedagogical consideration for the teachers. Say the teachers think about whether it is realistic to ask students to make a school backpack and achieve this learning outcome in 4 lessons. And the teacher may think about the characteristic of the grade 5 students. So this is some pedagogical hints here. And here teachers can write down the basic description of the course. So I just simply click text here. So you can see that we start our design from the learning outcome because we adopt an outcome-based approach. And you can see that the platform has already preloaded some learning outcomes here because this preloaded learning outcome is based on your selection as the first step because you have chose the engineering design as the STEM practice. So here we suggest two learning outcomes here. One is because usually we can facilitate students design thinking through taking a student go through the engineering design process. So here you can see that the design thinking can be listed as one of the learning outcome and categorized as the disciplinary skills. And also because we adopt a self-directed learning approach and we also want the student to become a self-directed learner. So we can see the generic skill here. We want to facilitate students' self-directed learning strategies here. So it is obvious that we want students to achieve more. So we can simply add learning outcome here. Say if I'm teaching some of the like I'm teaching physics and want the students to understand the electric circuit here. So we just add the disciplinary practice here, and here has hints what we mean by the disciplinary knowledge, disciplinary skills, and also the generic skills. And we also have the Bloom taxonomy to guide the teacher to write realistic or measurable learning outcomes here. So if I want the student to comprehend the concept of the electric circuit here, so we should comprehend because this is belong to the science domain in STEM. And here you can see that we also have some prompt words for the teacher to write their learning outcomes. Say, I would like the student to explain the concept of electric circuit here. Also, if I also want the student to are able to connect some sensor because I want to use the sensor to making the school backpack. So also we can see that we can ask the students to use sensors to create a smart backpack. So we have these kinds of guidance to guide the teachers to write the learning outcomes. So when you finish the learning outcome and then click the next step, here the platform also have suggested some of the what we call the curriculum component based on your selection on the engineering design. So basically the engineering design usually go through five steps that Nancy just showed you in the presentation, like the student will identify the problem first, and then find a solution, construct the prototype, test the performance, and then revise the product. So this sequence is based on your selection on the engineering design in the first step STEM practice here. Oh, sorry. Yes, here you can see once the sequence has determined, and then we can do the task design in different components. Here, like the first step, we want a student to identify the problem first, and how can a student to identify the problem and what kinds of learning outcome can be achieved here. Here, we also have some suggestion for the learning outcome that can be achieved in this component. And you can see that two learning outcomes regarding the design thinking process can be facilitated here. One is we want the students to empathize with users, and we want the students can define the design problems. These two are associated with the design thinking process. So we have some kinds of suggestion here. And in terms of the self-directed learning, in this particular component, we want the student to learn how to do goal setting in this component. And here we also have suggest some learning task sequence here. First, say how can we ask the student to do the to identify the problem. So we may ask the student to observe a scenario for the design problem, and then we will have an activity like we will ask the student to do some client interview. In this client interview, one student will play a role, will have a role playing. One can be a client and one can be the interviewer. So the interview you ask the client their needs, and then understand their needs, and then student will work on what they have collected from the interview and define a problem they find in the interview and then present to the whole class. So this is the task sequence for the first component, identify problem through goal setting. So this activity, okay.
We stop here first. So as you can see, so we've actually make it easier for the teacher when they start to have something sort of built in, a kind of like a skeleton, have a skeleton. So if you want, so it's really for the novice. So they think, I mean, okay, they know when they come in that we recommend them if you're doing STEM and if you want to do something that asks the students to make something, you should be thinking about design thinking as one of the learning outcomes. And so we are, and then with the first, so the first curriculum component should then be, so you can see, let's say, for example, here, stop. The first task is learning. Can you show the, yeah, okay, he's this one. Yeah. So students observe the scenario of the design problems through stimulus. So basically, it doesn't know. I mean, the system doesn't really know what you want to teach. But then, so say, for example, if you are thinking about the smart backpack, so you are thinking about, say, people, the students carrying a very heavy backpack every day. So what would be the problem if you were to, say, if you were to be looking for a smart backpack, what kind of smartness do you want? And so it's stimulating, okay, so it's actually prompting the teacher to think, okay, now this is what you want the students to think about. So you can define what kind of stimulus. And so, of course, then you need to provide some resources. Say, for example, like a video. It doesn't provide you with a video, but it suggests that a video might be something that you can consider. And so at this point, it's probably a receiving and interpreting information type. And it is sort of suggesting maybe you don't need too much time because it's just a stimulus. And then after that, they would be discussing, and they can have a kind of like a client interview to understand the designer's needs and so on. So maybe we should stop here and ask if you have any questions first. Anyone? Can you follow?
I think it's quite self-explanatory.
Okay.
It's very well explained.
Okay, thank you. So basically, say if you think that you don't want to start with showing a video, maybe you want them to start with discussing the problem with backpacks first. It's okay, and you can easily change the order. Can we change the order here?
Yes.
Yes. So you can show. Yeah. So you can use drag and drop and change the order.
Yes.
Of the
or
activity.
you can simply add a learning task that can cater to the discussion here. See, we can choose the type of exploration through conversation here and how much time we will use. And you can do all the settings, all the class settings, have groups, 4 people per groups, what kinds of resources. Maybe we can provide some worksheet to guide their discussion, or we want them to discuss on Moodle. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're setting up a new task, will there be an option to get suggestions from things that other teachers did or other instructors did from the?
Yes, that's a very, very good question. In fact, as you can see, this is like a pattern, isn't it? So we have a pattern for self-directed learning for engineering design. And so what, so this is something which is a pattern, which is a framework without content. But then once, say, if we have used this to do our smart backpack, then the smart backpack curriculum unit becomes something which is a design. And the design belongs to this engineering design pattern. And so if another teacher, say if I make it public, and then you use it to create something else, also associated with this particular pattern, then we would have more than one. And so the idea is that we would be able, so hopefully we would be able to have a kind of like an archive of designs which are different. And we are also hoping to be able to have comments on, or say, for example, even if it's our own work, we might want to put some remarks or comments, or because you might have a very nice design, but you have to implement. So in terms of the actual implementation, you might need to do something, right? So you may be careful about, say, sometimes students might tend to forget about this, and there could be a danger in this kind of step. So you can have remarks. So this is so that's what we are hoping to be able to build in. Yes, very good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If no, then maybe Lerming, you can sort of should we? I don't know. I mean, we can go on.
There is another question in the chat box I can see. Is it possible to collaborate on the design with colleagues? Yes, definitely yes. We have created some group functions, and the design can be shared within a group, and they can work collaboratively on this design. Yeah,
Yes.
We can see the design group here. So we have different groups here, and the design can share within a group or share to the public.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Actually, in the previous, the HE version, we've got a very nice sort of group structure for sharing, and also in addition to sharing designs, we can also share patterns, and the patterns can be a whole course, so a unit pattern. But we can also have patterns like, say, for example, the predict, observe, explain. So we can have different patterns that works for particular types of outcomes or settings. But we need to have more of the, Learning is showing you some of the patterns. We can have your own private pattern. You can also have you can also access public pattern, and you can also have your own group patterns or group designs. Yeah. Any particular other requests?
I tried it, and does it support Hebrew? Because I was writing in Hebrew, but I don't know at the end how it looks like.
So it doesn't work. So it doesn't work in Hebrew.
No, it doesn't work in Hebrew. Okay.
Okay. So that means, okay, so of course the interface is in English, but when you type in the text in Hebrew, you cannot save. Because we can do it in Chinese.
I will try.
So I need to understand. Yeah, I mean, this multilingual feature is very important. Yeah. Maybe maybe I can work with Yishay later to see whether what's the problem from stopping people to work in other languages, because we've done it in English. I mean, we did it first for English, but then we also we were able to use Chinese. I mean, that's absolutely important for us to be able to work in Chinese. I don't know whether we need to do something with the code to be able to for it to take in other languages. Yeah, good to know that it doesn't work with Hebrew. I thought it's multilingual. Okay.
No, I was typing in Hebrew and it was okay. I just don't know if how it looks like later.
Okay.
And Nancy, would you like to respond one more question in the chat box?
Okay, so which disciplines have you found LDS to be more helpful in, and in which less so? Okay. Now, first of all, for us at the Center for IT and Education, we've been working with K-12 teachers, particularly in the STEM area, for a long time. So clearly, we have been biased more towards the STEM area, and it definitely worked there. But when I've been using it to teach my master level students who are doing a master in IT and education, and I teach a course on learning design with technology. And so I always ask my students to work in groups to come up with a learning design. And so over the past 2 years, I've been asking them to do their project in LDS HE, and also, so I want them to do it in LDS HE, and also to implement the design after they've done it in the Learning Design Studio on Moodle as the learning management system. And I think I haven't seen particular disciplines, because I asked them to try different levels, and also I always assign the students, say some of them do it in the humanities, some of them do it in the STEM area, and they both seem to work. But I haven't had as many users in the STEM area compared to the arts and humanities. And I think from my perspective, the biggest challenge would not be the discipline. No, sorry, it's not the discipline per se, but what kind of pedagogy would be useful for particular discipline areas, and because I don't have a strong sort of arts and humanities. Well, education, yes, but say if you talk about history, geography, then I'm not that familiar. And so I would say I hope to be able to work with a more diverse group, with the background. Then I'm sure that we would be able to sort of customize it. Yeah. Yes, good question. Yes. When we design the LDS, our dream, our vision is for it to be connected to a learning management system. And we've actually already done a kind of like a proof of concept to make the LDS as a module in Moodle. So that means hopefully later we can actually just log into Moodle and then actually start the design in the LDS module in Moodle. And then the beauty of that is that we would like to be able to have the assessment and also the learning analytics built in to the Learning Design Studio. Because from our perspective, assessment design is part of learning design. And so to be able to do analytics on the learners' activities and the learning outcomes is very important, both as a form of providing feedback to the learner and also as a form of providing feedback to us as learning designers. So I mean, we don't know when we would exactly have that realized, but what we would like to be able to do is, in addition to the designer dashboard, we would have a learning analytics dashboard built in to the Learning Design Studio. So once we got it plugged in, because all the data is on the learning management system, so we would then be able to specify the learning analytics to be shown to the learner and the learning designer or the teacher, through the Learning Design Studio. Yeah. With an iframe. Oh yes. Okay. What we would, yes, actually when we design the LDS, we don't do it directly on the Moodle because we want the design to be able to be exported and be imported to other learning management systems. So at the moment, we can export the designs as JSON files. So supposedly, if we can get the protocol correct, then the design can be exported from the LDS and then be imported to other learning management systems. I mean, the main thing is in the Learning Design Studio, we can have a lot of different learning activities, but they may not all be supported by the learning management system. Say, for example, edX or the Open edX. It has a very limited set of activities. And so if we do all the design on the Learning Design Studio, we might find very frustrating because we can't implement it on that learning management system. So there is a need to say, okay, so if you're designing for a learning management system X, then these are the only things that you can choose. Yeah. Right. So have I answered all the questions? Well, I think we still have a few minutes, so I'm happy to answer more. How many of you are actually using any learning design tools for your work? Anyone have actually tried it out for real design purpose?
You mean digital tools for?
Yes. Yes.
No.
It's actually very instructive. I can tell you my story. You know, I started by designing the tool for K-12 teachers, and then because we have to do the HE version, I challenged myself to use. Initially, we didn't have, because initially I thought, well, the K-12 version can still be sort of modified very easily for the higher education. And then very quickly, once I started, I realized no. So I think to actually meet the needs of the particular user group is important. So I think if you're interested, do try it out. And if you have any question, just send us an email. Can we type in? I mean, LDS at site.hku.hk. Can we type it in? Well, we can send it to Yishay later, and then so you can actually send messages to us. We can also have the contact information on our website on the tool. So we would be very happy to receive any feedback or comments, because this would only help us to improve. So we can also look at the multilingual issue of the tool. Yeah.
Do you have much experience with higher education instructors? Because I know I don't know, but I think teachers in K-12 are more open to think about their processes and how to teach the students. And I think that higher education instructors are a lot of times very cynical, and maybe they have their way of doing things and aren't too open to rethinking their teaching methods.
Yes. Yes. Honest answer, we have not worked directly with higher education teachers. We've worked with instructional designers in higher education, and they like it. So at the moment, I just signed up an instructional designer from our university. She's sort of between jobs, and she know our tool. And I said, you know, can you help us to kind of design another customized interface for the Learning Design Studio for higher education, for some more specific pedagogies, for example, like game-based learning or problem-based learning or experiential learning. And she's very interested. So I'm hoping that with that, I would then be able to work with our Center for Enhancement of Teaching and Learning. That's at the university level. So I don't think we would be able to work directly with teachers, but if we work with the instructional design team and also our professional development team, they would be the people who would then be able to serve as an intermediary. Yeah. Are you an instructional designer?
Yes.
Good. And what do you feel? Do you think it would be helpful to you?
For me, yes, but I don't get to actually do the designs of the courses. The instructors do that, and I only help them in their process. And I get to work with very few instructors every year. And a system like this could open up the process to so many more instructors. And I think it's an amazing system that can make them really think. But I don't know if emotionally they're really open to thinking about their courses again, especially if they're very experienced instructors. And I think they sometimes need to refresh their views.
Right, right. Yeah, I think, you know, our experience, even with the K-12, is that because it's quite alien to how they've been working before. So, but usually you can get a few who are interested. And once they see, I mean, they see the relevance to their work, they can be the ambassador. So they talk about what they do with that and so on. Then it becomes easier to promote it. So we, at the end of the day, we need teachers to promote the tool to other teachers. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think now I see Yishe here. I think we should go. Should we go back to the main room?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
see you in the main room then. Bye. Thank you so much for a very interesting session. Thank you.